How's it going, everybody? It's Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. This is UFC Vegas 259, most stacked card of the year. Me and my guest, Matt Holt, break the whole thing down from a betting perspective. Check it out at the link below. Head on over to odds.com. Give us a like while you're at it, and have a good week. Good luck on all your betting action. Next up, we've got another flyweight fight. The little guy's going to war this week after a bunch of cards with heavyweights on them. We've got Joey B. Benavidez making his return to the cage, and he's taking on Askar Askarov. Joseph Benavidez, just a staple of the UFC at this point. 28-7, a ton of experience. Askar Askarov, 12-0-1, just the draw, the only blemish on his undefeated record. The new hotness of the division, trying to get close to a title. Matt, I'll let you kick this one off. What are you doing here?
Look, I went with the new hotness, and I laid the $1.25. I have 2 units on Askarov. I just think Joseph Benavidez put his heart and soul into those 2 title shots of Figueiredo were his last shot. And even after he got his ass whooped in the first fight, and he was able to make an excuse, right? Well, he missed weight, and he was too big, and there was the headbutt. No, you just got jacked up. And then he got jacked up even worse the second time. And at this point, Joseph Benavidez, I think, is 0-5 now in UFC title fights? It's just bad. He just can't get the job done there. And unless there's a new champion, he's probably not going to get another title fight. And I just don't know if his head's going to be in it right away. We saw him after the DJ fights kind of have a couple fights where he slipped up, and then he got back on track. This feels like a spot where Benavidez may not be heart and soul into his training for this one. And Askarov's a killer. I mean, this guy's only blemish in the UFC's 2-0-1 is a draw to Brandon Bam Bam Moreno, who, by the way, is fighting for the title again in his next fight. So that's not exactly a bad draw. And he has a win over Alexander Pantoja, who we just saw have an amazing win. That win's only aging well again. This guy's for real. He's already been in there with 2 top 5 flyweights in the world, handled himself very well in both. So while he may not have as much experience as Benavidez, he's been in there with killers already. He's made that walk to the octagon against killers. I like Askarov here a lot.
Well, once again, Matt, it always floors me when you and I approach a fight the exact same way. I'm with you here. I'm on Askar Askarov, and this was the second fight. If you remember, I said there were a couple fights I was looking for, that I was looking ahead on. Askar Askarov versus Joey B. As soon as they lined this one up, I snagged Askarov at plus 100 like a month ago.
Wow.
I knew that this thing was going to go the other way, and I felt the wrong man was favored. Look, Joseph Benavidez, I don't have a bad thing to say about the guy. How could you? Yeah. He's nice. He's professional. He is incredible, but he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. He's on the short list of fighters, greatest fighters to never have that UFC belt put around their waist. And you know what happens when those guys say one last run? I got one more in me. You know, look at Alistair Overeem. You put together a good run, a good set of wins, and you're thinking, I'm knocking on the door of that title shot again. And then you get one little step up in competition and you get flatlined. That's the nail in the coffin. That tells you you will never be the UFC champion. You are never going to get there. Because if they come back saying one last run after they just said one last run, they're lying to themselves. And like you said, when you realize, okay, so I'm never going to be champion, I'm never going to achieve my life's ambition, are you working as hard? Do you train as hard when you're at that moment where you could dig deep or you could tap? Are you really going to go for it? You know, in training, when the young, hungry kid is pushing you up against the wall, are you just going to give in to the takedown that day because, at the end of the day, you know how to defend a takedown. It doesn't really matter. You know, I think there's a decent chance of a slump here from Joseph Benavidez. And on top of that, he's been wobbly for a long time. Joe Benavidez is a guy that's extremely hittable because of the way that he fights, and he's at that age where you start to pay for that. Askar Askarov is a better wrestler than Joe is, and that's always been the ace up the sleeve of Joe Benavidez, is he can grapple people if he needs to. That's not going to be here. He's not going to out-grapple Askar Askarov. He's not going to out-scramble Askar Askarov. This dude is legit on the ground. And the thing people don't seem to realize, Askar's got more bomb in his hands than people give him credit for. This guy can swing with the best of them. And I think that Askar Askarov has an outside shot of actually sending Joe B back out on, looking up at the ceiling. I think if they get in the pocket and trade, if Joe decides to crash in again and leave his chin open the way he has his entire career, he's just begging for a big shot from Askarov, and I think he can get put down again. I like the spot that I got at plus 100. The short favorite line is where it should be, so minus 130 is about where it's at right now. I don't see a problem with that. I like Askar Askarov. Take him. I think he's winning on Saturday. And honestly, I know he's a decision machine type of guy, but I'm maybe sprinkling a little bit on Askar Askarov by knockout.
Yeah, and he's only a decision guy to your point because he's a 125er. He actually pops for that weight.
He does. He absolutely does. And, we've got a total here at 2.5. Everybody make sure you keep an eye on odds.com. I do a show called Total Madness where I go over everything, not from the side perspective, but from the totals perspective a little later on in the week. So I'm going to give a little way here, but this under 2.5 may not be a bad spot. With these lighter guys, you see them go over more often than not simply because, like you said, they're the lighter guys. They're smaller. They don't hit as hard. They're not as explosive as some of the big guys. But Joe Benavidez has been the exception to that rule. Joe's the guy that can hit hard enough. He can crack and he can get people out of there. But by the same token, these days, Joe's a bit chinny. Joe might be open to getting cracked. Joe might be open to getting KO'd. I think this under is live, and at plus 170, plus 180, the under 2.5. I mean, I'm already on Askar Askarov, so I don't think I'm going to play this one. But if you're looking for a spot and you don't necessarily like the side, under 2.5 at plus 180 is not a bad little dice roll.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And at 36 years old, look, one of the first things to go is the chin, and he just got knocked out 2 fights ago.
By the God of War.
Yeah.
Come back from that knockout, back to back. I want to see what that chin is made of after being KO'd twice by Davison Figueiredo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here, absolutely. My boy Zabel in the chat. Askarov nearly KO'd Elliott, and we know Elliott doesn't get knocked out. Askar had him on skates that night. So looking over at the line, just so people have an idea, Askar Askarov inside the distance is plus 435 right now. Now, here's the thing. Joe Benavidez doesn't get submitted. I'm not going to take that because I think I'll get a ridiculous line on the knockout. And even if it's just like a quarter unit or something like that, I'm going to toss a little sprinkle on that knockout because it's going to be a ridiculous line. And at the end of the day, I think it's reasonable for that to actually come on through.
Yeah, and Askarov isn't getting submitted either. So if you're going to, rather than just play the under, which is a good, you're going to get a good plus, like plus 170 on the under, you're better off taking the KO props because that's how this is going to end if it ends early.
Exactly. Some books have that, fight ends by knockout, something like that. That would cover you for both sides if you wanted to do that instead of the under. That might even be a better price tag.